Good morning, everybody. Wanted to go over a new update that we created and released this weekend, and I think it will be beneficial in several different ways. We recently had added the ability to do conditional messages, and as we got into it, we got some user input and decided that we really needed to make a couple changes. So I just want to go over the changes that we've done and make sure that everybody understands them. So in this case, I'm just showing an example of a conditional check for whether we're dealing with a seller or a buyer. This is a transactional routine so that it's checking the transaction side of it. And I'm just using a recording date, which probably is not the best for this particular example, but it was a date. So in this case, we might come in here and we say we want to send a message, and depending on who we are representing, are we representing the buyer, or are we representing the seller, or potentially are we representing both of them? So I'm going to go into this activity, and in this activity you'll see just the normal calculations, no big deal there. But down here at the bottom, we have two actions. One is send the buyer message. You'll see that it is it's got a little icon for different choices. This is the icon we use for a conditional message. And if I go into this one's for the buyer message that I might send. We'll come up here and take a look. I do have it set to automatically send. So if this is a message you would want to send out automatically, you can certainly do that. And the type on this is now send conditional message. And like I said, we had this a couple weeks ago. We added this, but have just made a few minor tweaks to it. In this case, for the transaction, there are some fields. There are only certain fields that we do the conditional check on right now. We'll probably be adding more, but just let us know which ones you need. But in this case, we're going to do the transactional side. We do have status, we have the type, and then we have the side. So in this case, we're going to do side. And we can do different conditions. So the first condition, what I had done in this case, you can click on the add condition option, and it'll add a section like this where condition 1, condition 2. The condition in this case for this particular field, the transaction side, it has different potential choices. Buyer only, listing only, or listing and buyer or buying. So which side do you represent? Well, if I'm dealing with a buyer only, I can choose that. And this is the template that I would want to send if I'm dealing with the buyer. We do have a place here for the objective. If you want to manipulate it in any way at all, you can certainly do that. And then was its preferred or email or SMS sending type. So this is all condition 1, and it just identifies what would happen if this particular field, the transaction side, is set up for buying only. Down below this, I've got a second condition, meaning if it's listing and buying, meaning I'm still representing the buyer, I still want to send that same message. But what I'm doing is I'm sending it to the buyer side of this because this qualifies as well. So I'm going to send this particular message, which is the same. You can use different messages depending on how you're wanting to do this. But in this case, if you're representing the buying side or if you're representing both sides, you're wanting to send this message. One thing that we changed was we made it so that the default message is optional. So if you have this off, which it's off right now, then if it meets this classification or this category of condition, or if it meets this condition, it will deal with those. If it doesn't meet either one of those conditions, it will fall through and just not do anything with it off. if I turn this on, then it would give me the ability to set up a default message that if it's not one of these conditions up here, then use this. So we've got an if then else type option, but you're doing multiple ifs all in one spot. So it really becomes very powerful. Once you've got that, then you just identify who am I sending this message to? And you can set up multiple recipients. The buyer, in this case, because this is a buyer action, we're sending it to the buyer. So all those are set up for the buyer. Now, what we would do for the seller, if we're dealing with the seller side, is the exact same thing, but instead of the condition being buyer only, in this case, it's listing only. So we're representing the listing side. We are the listing agent, and in this case, we're going to send the seller opening email. And similar to the previous one, where if I'm representing both sides, I'm going to send the seller this message, and down at the bottom here, you'll see that the recipient is the seller. Again, I have the default off, so if it's not this or this, then it just won't send anything at all. So what this does is this gives us the opportunity to say, well, if we are representing the buyer, send the buyer message. If we're representing the seller, send the seller message. But if we represent both, then we can send both. And we're sending them to the different associated people. So we're doing this secondary one because you could have both sides of the transaction, but we're still wanting to send to the seller. So tying this all together now by doing this, whenever the date gets filled in this case it's the recording date, may not make as much sense, but if that date gets filled in, the routine gets kicked off on the date that it's supposed to. It's going to go and send the message based off of the value that's in that particular field. So if I come up here, and I'm just going to click on this one, I believe I have one already identified. Yeah, there we go. Let me go to this one. This is just a sample transaction, and if we look right here on the side, so if I'm representing both sides, both the listing side and the buying side, then whoever is in my party members, in this case, Kathy is the seller and I am the buyer, then I will get the buyer message, she will get the seller message. If I'm only representing one side of it, let's say I'm only representing the buyer, then in that case, whenever it comes to do that process, since I'm just doing the buyer, it's only going to do that buyer action, which it would send the message here to me, and it would skip the one because this record does not have the seller option or the listing side of it. So that just makes it very powerful for being able to set up one routine but handle different conditions. And that's the whole purpose of the conditional messaging, just being able to send out different messages to different people based off of a given field value. Hope this is helpful. If you guys have any questions about this, certainly reach out. We'll be happy to assist you in any way. Have a great day.